Hello. Hello and welcome to the super awkward review of season 1 of The X-Files, which nobody asked for. I've been watching The X-Files since I don't even know when. I'm not gonna lie. Let me see if I can find the date. I've been taking notes and seeing how long it's taken to start and finish. It was in June. I know that. Okay, so I watched the first episodes of season 1 of The X-Files on June 21st. And I finished today, just a moment ago, on July 2nd. That's when I'm filming this. It will probably not be out today, so thank you for watching. I have not been online on YouTube doing this sort of thing in a long time. The last time I did a review of a show was Bates Motel. I was really into it. And today I'm going back because I felt that there was a need to discuss the different things that happen throughout the series The X-Files. I watched The X-Files as a child, didn't really understand exactly what it meant and the conspiracies and all of that sort of thing. But I watched as a child, and that's what I grew up watching, along with, all the other stuff, Friends, Seinfeld, Cheers, just, for entertainment purposes. And then we got into the alien baby stuff later on, and we watched that as a family, and I would be like, alien baby all the time, as a child, as an annoying child. But anyway, okay, so a background. X-Files started in, well, let's get the actual information. I don't want to be incorrect about anything about this video, so we're going to cheat a little bit. The X-Files started in September 1993, and then goes until May 2002 for the first run. And then it had a revival, which I'll do later, in 2018, and then that finished. Then I had a movie, I Want to Believe, which I watched, and that was released in 2008 after the original run. And then they had a revival of the revival, and that didn't do so well for the 11th season. But anyway, the original one was on Fox, the original series, created by Chris Carter. The reason that I went into this show is because there have been a lot of things that I've seen out of the 2020s that have come to fruition that were kind of just topics on the series. So it's interesting to go back and see where that all began and how many things they got right, scarily enough. Well, we all know about the Lone Gunmen, and I'm not watching that, but I will reference that had a lot of stuff that was actually eerily similar to what happened later on in 2001. And then it just somehow got canceled. I don't know how that happened, but anyways. Okay, so first thing is, they say in the very first episode of the first season that the pilot is, well, not just the pilot, but the series itself is inspired by actual documented accounts. So we already have that eerie kind of quality going into the series. So the X-Files itself is we find out in the pilot that there's a bunch of cases that have not been closed, that need to be closed, but they're kind of crazy, and they kind of have weird, kind of paranormal, supernatural kind of things going on, extraterrestrial sometimes, but unexplained phenomena happens in these cases. So they just kind of put them all in a pile, and then they give them to Mulder who is tasked to close them along with Dr. Dana Scully. Mulder is Fox Mulder. Dana Scully is his new partner in the first episode. So there have been some, well, I won't say anything about outside stuff, never mind. So what I viewed in the first episode is that they are already, even without trying, because Chris Carter said that he had no intention of getting them together as a couple and having any romantic involvement between the characters. That's bullshit. I will say that right now. It's clear from the get-go that something's going to happen with them eventually. I've been watching shows for a long time, and I have couples that I like to get together, that I wait to get together, and I almost am always correct about when they get together, or them getting together in the first place. So these are a couple of people who are kind of opposites, and opposites attract, but Fox Mulder believes in the paranormal, the supernatural, all that stuff, extraterrestrial beings, because he has been exposed to an extraterrestrial sighting by his sister, who was abducted by an extraterrestrial being, a spaceship, and he's reeling from that, so he's very personally invested in these investigations. And on the other side is Dana Scully, who is very much scientific and fact-based in her investigations. She doesn't let her personal stuff get in the way, usually, and she's kind of like, she's the one who grounds him a little bit, and then he like opens up her mind. So they have a very good quality about their characters that matches the other. So we're introduced to them in the pilot, and I don't remember what they did in the pilot. It was basically just them getting together and working on a thing. A lot of these episodes will be like what we call the freak of the week, so it's just not really connected to the overall arching theme of the show. And well, sometimes you think that it's a freak of the week, and then they bring it back and they're like, ha, look at this. And I'm like, okay, fine. Oh, and I'm going to tell you my favorite episodes by the end of this review, by the way. So anyway, let's get started. So if we look at let me remind myself what happened in the first fucking episode, because it's been so effing long. Oh wait, we gotta start with one of the best parts of this show is the music. So we have the first episode, and it comes in with this banger of an opening theme song. I don't know if it's in the first episode though. I think it might just be in the second episode. But anyway, here it is. It might be in the first episode. I think it might be. Oh shit, it's very loud. Love it. I'm not good at whistling, but you get the point. So we have that in every episode, which is really fun to start everything. If I go to the X-Files, well, that's what this is. Okay, so it's the film. Okay. I don't know why they call it the X-Files film when it's the X-Files Fight the Future. That was very confusing for me when I was looking for the episodes. I was like, oh shit, I ended up on the film. That's not what I wanted. I wanted the episodes. Okay, if I go to production, I should be able to find the episodes. Yes. All right. This will give me like an idea of if I fuck up and I forget something that happened, this will tell me what to do. This will tell me what happened. Okay, episodes. All right, episode 1 is the pilot, like I said. Okay, it's directed by Robert Mandel, written by Chris Carter. Chris Carter writes a lot of this stuff in the beginning, but he hands it off to some other people sometimes. So September 10th, 1993 was the first episode. It did really well with the ratings too. I was exposed to the X-Files for the first time because my brother had recorded it on a tape like you had to do back in the day, and I wanted to record something myself from the television, and that's how you got things. You would have to record them back in the day. If you didn't want to buy them, that was the poor way to do it, to get content. So I recorded over it. I don't know if he knows that, but anyway, he knows it now. If he watches this, he probably won't. Anyway, number 1. Agent Dana Scully is assigned to work with Agent Fox Mulder on the X-Files in an attempt to debunk his work on the paranormal. So she was put in there to keep him in line. And she does that to an extent, but she gets kind of involved over the time that she spends with him on these cases. Their first case has them investigating apparent alien abductions. We're just starting out with aliens. That's how I figured out the main theme of the show. And I think it's pretty correct because they bring it up in the Fight the Future film as well, which is in 1998, I think. But it's aliens. Aliens, aliens, aliens. All I got over and over again throughout watching The X-Files the original time was aliens. That's what you come away thinking about, aliens, aliens, aliens. But there's more to it than aliens, so we're going to discuss that. Okay, so then it says a near comatose man, Billy Miles, is taking his classmates, including Teresa Newman, into the woods where they are killed in a flash of bright light. I don't like the way they're explaining these things, but it's more info than I put because I just didn't really get much out of that episode other than their meeting and them being different. So then it gets interesting in the second episode because then that's Deep Throat, which kind of like cements how the show is going to go a little bit more, and we get a little more backstory and stuff. So Mulder and Scully travel to Idaho to investigate the disappearance of a military test pilot. They observe unusual aircraft activity, prompting Mulder to proclaim the existence of a government conspiracy, which he's not wrong about. Mulder sneaks into the military base. This was a crazy episode, now I'm remembering. And is spotlighted by one of the craft, but is captured by soldiers and has his memory erased before he is released. Sound familiar? Sounds a little Men in Black-y, but they did it on the X-Files first in 1993, September 17th. And this also introduces the character of Deep Throat, who is giving him information and also trying to keep him from getting too close to the truth. I wrote for this episode extraterrestrials or experimental military tech, because that's what they mention in it. And I have like a clip that I can like play. Oh, I could just do things this way. That's smart. Okay. All right, this is a part of it I got. Don't copyright me.
I've got a 20. Over. Roger, Redbird. Don't fall back position. We're opening the gate. Redbird down.
Sometimes they come in real low and just put on the skitters, right?
Seth Green.
And then they just hang there and hover without making a sound. And you just think, who turned down the volume, right?
What do you think they are?
Everybody thinks that they're like UFOs, but I think it's some kind of Star Wars cyber tech, newfangled hardware, right? I would probably roll out for Desert Storm 2 or something like that. Cruise right over Saddam's house, be like, what?
Do they look anything like this?
No. They look exactly like that.
Okay, so that's just like an example of like a scene in the episode that stood out to me that I wanted to record and let you guys know about. It says it was experimental UFO derived tech. So both. UFOs have been here a long, long time, according to Deep Throat, who doesn't have a name at this point. Another interesting episode is number 3. And it's Squeeze. Okay, first, that was written by Chris Carter, that episode, and directed by Daniel Sackheim. So then we go to number 3, Squeeze, by Harry Longstreet, the director, and written by Glenn Morgan and James Wong. So James Wong went on after being associated with the X-Files as a writer. He went on to direct one of the Final Destination films. Hold on one moment. Let me look at his page. I think it was number 3, but I want to make sure. Pretty sure that's true. He did Wise Guy as well. Okay, yeah, he did the first one. Right, okay. He did the very first Final Destination and Final Destination 3. And then he was done. He was like, bye. I'm done. Okay. So yeah, so that is an episode in which the team investigates a series of murders where there appears to be no tangible method to the murderer's entrance and escape. What's happening? And it ends up being Eugene Victor Toombs, a seemingly normal janitor who is suspected by Mulder to be a mutant, who kills his victims and extracts their livers in order to prolong his existence, which he is right about. And I said for that one, Freak of the Week, no real connection to ongoing arc. And then later on, I'll tell you what happens there. Then we have F4 Conduit, written by Alex Ganza. You'll see him a lot. And Howard Gordon, directed by Daniel Sackheim. And as Section Chief Scott Blevins expresses his concern with the direction of the X-Files department, Mulder becomes obsessed with solving a case that closely parallels an encounter he experienced as a child, which dealt with alien abduction and an exploration of Mulder's determination to find his sister, Samantha Mulder. So we have a lot more information about Mulder in this episode and backstory. And I put back to UFO and Mulder's sister's abduction. Child goes missing after a UFO landing. Then we have a weird one with episode 5, The Jersey Devil. I'm not aware of this whole tale, urban legend or whatever of the Jersey Devil, so I went in totally blind. Chris Carter wrote that one. Joe Napolitano directed it. What I wrote there was Bigfoot, how advanced are we as a species? Because that's what the main, there was a topic of conversation between Mulder and someone else regarding who's more civilized and everything. It was an interesting subject to bring up. But this one was mainly this woman grew up in the forest or whatever and became really manic and kind of a murderous. So she started killing people. So sad stuff. But you kind of feel bad for her at the end. Then Shadows is number 6, which is written by Glenn Morgan and James Wong. Again, directed by Michael Katelman. When an unseen force commits several murders where a young woman is present, Mulder suspects that it is the spirit of the woman's former boss who is believed to have committed suicide, but was actually murdered, and he is protecting her from his business partner. Yeah, that one's pretty much about psychokinesis or telekinesis. They mention terrorism. The dead have signs of life after they're dead. That was interesting enough to write about. This next one was interesting in terms of where we are now with technologies, so it's a little scary. F7's Ghost in the Machine by Alex Ganza and Howard Gordon, directed by Gerald Friedman. A computer with highly advanced artificial intelligence begins to kill in order to preserve its existence when it... Sound familiar? When it is deemed too insufficient to continue controlling the workings of an office building. And I wrote there, new technology, AI, central operating system, controls building and malfunctions. DoD wants to use the learning machine. The machine's supposed to be dead, but lives in the end. So they bring it back. And I noticed some similarities, by the way, because I watched Buffy a long time ago as well. And there's a very similar kind of vibe in the end of the Buffy episodes and the end of the X-Files episodes, which I just wanted to point out, that they have a similar vibe. We're coming to one of my favorite episodes and one of my least favorite ones in terms of did it really move the plot? Did it really do anything for the series? And that is the next one. Episode 8, Ice. There's a biological weapon, a major plague, going to descend on people if we don't get a hold of things. Infection, dividing groups of people, that sort of thing we've seen a million times. David Nutter directed this. Glenn Morgan and James Wong wrote it. This is from November 5th, 1993. When an Arctic research team mysteriously kill each other and themselves only days after drilling deeper into the ice than ever before, Mulder and Scully accompany a team of doctors and scientists to investigate. They discover an organism which infects living creatures and amplifies the host's feeling of anger and paranoia, and the new team starts to deteriorate as they wonder who among them are killers. Kind of like Among Us, but like with ice and stuff. Okay. This is probably, the next episode is probably one of the best written, realistically written episodes, and realistically shot, and feels the most realistic. But on the other hand, it also feels like it's a big commercial for NASA, so make of it what you will. And I don't think that's what his purpose was for this episode. So I'm sorry, Chris Carter, that I feel that way, but I felt that way. Episode 9, Space. So Space is a mysterious force is sabotaging a space launch program, which leads directly back to the commander of the team, who once claimed to have seen an alien in space while witnessing Mars from Earth orbit. The alien returns to Earth with him to torment him and wreck his new space program. William Graham directed that one, and I wrote here, NASA bad, government cover-up, terrorists targeting NASA, rockets blow up on purpose. That's all I wrote, but like there was more to it than that. The effects weren't so great on the space creature and him inhabiting the host, the human host. But it is 1993, so I gave it a pass. And they had probably a much lower budget for the first season, which is kind of evident in the way that things are presented on screen. And the scope, there's not much scope to the series at this point in terms of the production sets and that sort of thing. So Ep 10 is Fallen Angel. That's a really interesting one because it's about a train derailment. And it's a cover story for a UFO event. So this says, Larry Shaw directed that, Howard Gordon again, and Alex Ganza wrote it. Mulder puts the future of the X-Files in jeopardy, again, when he heads to a UFO crash site. He gets in trouble, a lot of trouble in this episode, being rapidly covered up by the military. He is arrested, and while in jail, he meets Max Fennig, a UFO nut whose NICAP group has followed Mulder's work on the X-Files. When Mulder is released, Scully urges him to return to Washington and face his superiors and try to save his job, but he finds out that Fennig is more than meets the eye and ignores Scully to try to save him instead. And yeah, there's a part of that that was interesting because looking back, you know, you don't have streaming services in 1993, so there's a part of it where I read there's a part where they have like a shot of the newspaper and Dana's reading it, or Scully's reading it, and it just says the most ridiculous shit. It's kind of funny to pause it and read it, because nobody was supposed to pause, and I just feel like an asshole bringing it up, but that was giggling. I was giggling a little bit at that. Then we have episode 11, Eve. Really good episode. Actually inspired the band Eve 6 to name themselves Eve 6. So there's that. Fred Gerber directed, Kenneth Biller and Chris Brancato wrote it. When two fathers on opposite sides of the country are inexplicably murdered at exactly the same time in exactly the same way, Mulder and Scully find that their 8-year-old daughters are perfect twins and were created in order to continue the Litchfield experiment, a eugenics project of the 1950s which produced cloned boys named Adam and girls named Eve who have heightened strength and intelligence but are prone to psychotic behaviors like super soldiers and stuff, right? So I say UFOs again. The eugenics and in vitro fertilization, experimentation, Litchfield experiment, cloning. There's a lot of cloning in that episode. It's very interesting. Then the next episode is called Fire, episode 12. Larry Shaw directed it. Chris Carter comes back to write. December 17th, 1993. Mulder investigates the deaths of British dignitaries at the behest of an old girlfriend from Oxford. Now we got a little bit of a relationship-y kind of thing going on. Cecil Lively, I did not say that right, is a pyrokinetic. He has the ability to start fires with his mind, and he wants Sir Malcolm Marston's wife. What I wrote about that is Firestarter. Mulder's ex from England shows up to annoy Scully. Scully is jelly. She is. X is suspicious. Scully really likes Mulder. I really felt at the end of that episode, and anyone would, that she really does like Mulder, and she's like trying to not get too involved, but she can't help it. She just has certain feelings, and whether they're like friendshipy or like she wants a relationship at some point, it's not clear with that in that episode. But oh my gosh, I wish I could do the next episode, because the next episode, by the way, is one of my favorites, probably my favorite one of this season, and I'll talk to you about it in the second half of season 1 of the X-Files.